So the next thing to talk about is planting a LEHR garden. So how do we plant a LEHR garden? So I want to be a little bit clear here. So we have a compost bin at this side and we have the drain at this side. So for the most part, just about any plant is going to do well just about anywhere in the garden. The only slight difference is the water pours into the compost bin, and so the water is going to be water level is going to be a little bit high. If there's nutrients being released by the compost, then there's going to be a little bit higher nutrients. So things like lemongrass and watermelon, they like more water and they like more fertility. It's usually a good idea to put them down here by the compost bin. On the other hand, the far side here is going to be, as the water flows through, it's going to the water level will drop. And so it doesn't wick quite as high here. So if you have things like rosemary and sage and oregano, and I even like to put eggplant down here that like the soil a little bit drier and a little bit poorer, then I'll put it down here. But that difference is fairly slight, so it really doesn't make a huge difference. In terms of planting, the first thing that you want to understand is that a LEHR garden needs to be planted at about 3 times the density of what you would plant any normal garden. You have to understand that because of the watering system and because of how fertile the soil is, the plants aren't going to compete for water or nutrients. They're only going to compete for sunlight. So in terms of companion planting, what I usually do is I'll plant plants based on the space needs that they have. So an okra plant, for example, is very tall. Throws a little bit of shade, but it's not too bad. Then you can plant a tomato at the base of it, which is kind of bushy. And then one of the things that you can do is if you plant a vine, like a squash or a cucumber, on the side, then that vine can trail over the edge and take its sun up over here where it's not competing with the other plants in the garden. If you have a plant that takes a lot of space, like a head of lettuce, or a broccoli plant is a fairly large plant, something like that, then you plant those on a fairly even spacing. I still put them at about half the spacing, so if it says 6 inches, I'll typically plant them a foot closer. You don't need any rows whatsoever. I could reach the whole thing from here. The row in a normal garden is for you to stand in. So in terms of other plants though, then what I'll do is I'll put a lot of companion plants in the garden here and just sort of intersperse them. So a lot of herbs, onions are great. These are green onions. They don't take up a lot of space, so you can kind of interplant them in amongst the other larger plants. In terms of planting, typically what you want to do when you have a plant pot is that you want to plant you take the plant out of its pot, and then you're going to want to plant the soil level on the pot at the soil level on the garden. The only real difference with that, this is a tomato plant. Tomatoes are a little bit of an exception. They actually will grow a stronger root system if you plant them a little bit too deep, but don't bury them completely. That's pretty much all there is to it. The plants tend to be fairly forgiving, and that's about all there is to planting. Good luck and happy growing.